All right, here we go. Sif Ches and Mechaber, yeah. Which corresponds to Sif Yud Aleph in the Alter Rebbe. But we'll start from the Mechaber Ches, yeah? Yeah, you guys here?
Hello.
Hello.
It's Michael. Michal.
Oh, how are you?
Baruch Hashem. A bit under the weather.
The weather? What's wrong with the weather?
A bit under the weather.
Under the weather, okay. For Shleiman.
Thank you.
Okay, so Sif Ches and Mechaber. In Shurnes HaKarshinen, Pirush Orach Vitza Blads, and Shemetz Mayim Aleim Bechli Gdei Lahasar Apsoiles. Got my microphone, don't tell my wife. Dainu Shemetz Mayim Aleim Bechli Gdei Lahasar Apsoiles. They shuffle nice and biyad Gdei Lahasar Apsoiles. How are they keboyer? I will noisten bekvara af bishneifel Apsoiles derech likle hakla. So you cannot soak the Karshinen, which the Orach says is Vitza, which sounds like vetch, which is vetch, V-E-T-C-H. It's a type of bean that is animal food. Although here in this translation of the Alter Rebbe, they translated Trumasin as vetch. So I don't know, but whatever it is, you can't soak it in water in order to remove the psoilus, nor can you rub it with your hand to remove the psoilus. That is like butter. Why? Of course you can do it from Erev Shabbos. Why not? Erev Shabbos, no problem. But you can put it into a kvara, which is a sifter, even though the psoilus will fall by way of the holes of the kvara. Now, obviously, you can't put it in the kvara, in the sifter, for the purpose of sifting, because that's mamash and isur d'oraisa. The point is, if you want to put it down somewhere, just because you just want to put it down somewhere, you don't want to sift it, so you could put it into the kvara.
Isn't that pretty convenient?
What do you mean?
It's going to do the job for you.
No, it's not going to do the job, because when you want to sift something, you have to agitate it. You put it in, you agitate it. Here you're just putting it in. And the Bir Halacha points out that Rashi says that it may fall out, it may not. If you don't agitate it, it's possible that nothing will actually fall out. So it's like a davar she'eino miskaven. You don't intend it. It's not a psik reisha. So big deal.
With corn cans.
Corn cans, yes.
Cans of corn.
Yes.
So opening the can, forget about the proper opening the can.
Yep, forgotten.
So taking the liquid out of the can, I once saw or heard, I don't know which one, you'd be allowed to take the cover and cover a majority of it, because some pieces are going to fall out with it.
An interesting question. So what is the question? You're saying because
taking out of the bar of the water from the...
My question to you is as follows. Are you concerned because you're taking the bad out of the good, or are you concerned because you're using a keli, i.e. the top of the can? Let me just repeat the question for those on the computer. If you have a can that you opened, not you opened, because maybe you don't hold open a can. Somebody opened a can. However it got opened. Or maybe you go by the place that you can't open. Whatever it is. You have an open can of corn. And you want to spill out the water and be left with the corn. So you're asking if there's a heter because some of the kernels might come out.
I thought there's a heter because you're not interested in the water.
Separating the what you don't want, which is the water, from what you want, which is the corn. What do you say, Yassi? Where have you been, Yassi, by the way? We haven't seen you in a while.
I've actually not been so well. So last night I was sick. Last week I was on Tuesday, I think.
Oh, you were, okay. Okay, fine. Sorry to hear that. Welcome back. Go ahead. What were you saying?
I understood that it's actually okay to do that with, say, tuna or with corn or something. Not because we're concerned. not because the corn might fall out, but because we're not straining it for the liquid. So we're not separating out, we're tipping over. So I'm pretty sure I read that in Shemir Shabbos Kelchasa.
You're not separating it for the liquid, that's true. You're separating for the corn. But why is it not aser? Because you are separating the liquid. You're not separating it for the liquid, you're separating it for the corn. But you are separating the liquid, you're removing the liquid, and you're keeping the solid. This is a question. I'm just repeating the question.
Aren't you separating the solid from the liquid?
Oh, so you're suggesting, maybe this is what you meant, I didn't realize. You're suggesting that what stays in your hand is considered the thing that you're selecting. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So this is an idea. This is something that needs to be discussed. So let's discuss it right now. So there's a famous Taz. We didn't get to it yet. No, that's Machlokes.
Didn't we discuss this case yesterday?
Did we? I don't think so. I don't remember discussing it. There is a Machlokes about liquid and solid if it's considered an Isser to separate them or if they're considered separated already. So the Maisa, the poskim say that you should not rely on that. There is an opinion that says there's no problem. According to that opinion, I don't remember. It's brought in the Bar Hativ. The Bar Hativ brings it down. I don't remember who it is. So according to that opinion, by the way, you could take out a fly, no problem, because it's solid and liquid. Yeah, whatever. It's not considered mixed. But the poskim say not to rely on that unless it's a big piece. It's a big piece of solid and liquid, then you can rely on it. That's why the poskim are mater. I'm not saying everybody, but there's makam lahater with tea bags. With taking a tea bag out of tea, besides the issue of bishul with tea bags, shlishi, whatever. But they say that it's not considered boyer because you're taking a big piece, comparatively big, compared to the water. You're taking a large item out of water, so it's not considered boyer.
According to the opinion, it doesn't allow liquid and solids. They would say that taking a tea bag out of liquid is a problem?
It's a question. Yes. Some say, well, hold the tea bag and take the tea away instead of taking the tea bag out. Some say use a spoon and take it together with some liquid. And some say, no, it's okay because it's big. So it's not considered a mixture, a big mixture, a big solid and a liquid. Yeah.
That's way just to pour the liquid when you just pour the tea or whatever,
that would be another
and then leave some tea with the tea bag.
You could do that too.
We'll
Could
be
do that too.
approximating the tea.
What do you have to do some liquid? What do you have to do with the tea bag? They're not separate. You're emptying out.
You take what you want.
From the container, whatever's holding. The bag stays there.
You could. That's another option. Okay. So
Some people that even spit and take it out.
if you let it drip, maybe. But, I don't know.
There's something dripping skita. Pressing on it is skita. Letting the tea bag drip is skita.
I don't know. The truth is, I don't know what the schita would be. I mean, the paper is a throwaway piece of paper, and the tea is just. I don't know. I didn't really think about that. Okay, So let's address this issue a little bit more specifically. So there's a famous Taz about the fly in the soup, right? Speaking of Purim and Haman, so, right? Haman says to Achashverosh, fly in the wine, they'll eat the wine, they'll throw the fly out, and they'll eat the wine. But if the king touches the wine, they're not going to eat it. See, they're rebellious against the king. Anyway, whatever. The Maisa, if you find a fly in your soup or any other liquid on Shabbos, the Taz says, take the fly out together with some soup. Take it in a spoon together with some soup. And that, he says, is not considered boyer because you're not just taking out the psoilus, you're taking out some of the oichel together with the psoilus.
Is it like muktzah, like some good, some bad, so you'd be okay? Like a drawer or something like that?
It's not, he doesn't say it because of muktzah. He doesn't say it because of muktzah. He says it because of boyer.
The concept of that, good, allowed, not allowed. No, well, that wouldn't usually be able to happen, right? Or would that be?
I'm not going to say it's similar to muktzah because muktzah has its own guidelines.
No, just in
And
the concept of having mutter and asr. Something mutter and asr. If for me, just to take out, let's say, the fly or something else, would be asr. Like they say about cutting, let's say that's.
we do have a similar concept by muktzah, but I'm not going to say it's the same concept because there's different reasons behind it. In other words, muktzah is a question of it being a basis, it being nullified to a muktzah item, and if there's two items, so it's not nullified to the muktzah item, so that's what it is. Here, it's not about being nullified; it's more about are you doing an act of separating? So because you're separating both good and bad, it's not considered an act of separating. That's the Taz's chiddush. However, even though the Alter Rebbe quotes the Taz in the Shulchan Aruch, Mishnah Berurah also quotes the Taz, by the way, but in the Siddur, the Alter Rebbe takes it back. And he says not to rely on the chiddush of the Taz to take out the soup with some of the soup with the fly, because of chashash chiyuv chatas, rather to tip it out. To tip it out. You can blow it, he says, you can blow the fly to the edge of the keli, and then tip it out. Because he says, when you know what, let me just borrow you out there, Evan, please. If you don't mind, because I don't know if online if they loaded up the siddur. Thank you.
Was the Alter Rebbe counting on someone reading the siddur?
Absolutely.
Saying he didn't change his psak because he's probably alive. He could have just changed the psak in the Shulchan Aruch if he wants to be strict. He quoted the Taz to bring him down la halacha.
In the Shulchan Aruch, he brought it down la halacha, yes.
So,
but did he rewrite the Shulchan Aruch? He actually started to rewrite the Shulchan Aruch, and he got 4 simanim into it. And then, I don't know if he passed away or if he can continue for other reasons. But there were a lot of things that he changed in his second version of the Shulchan Aruch. And, sorry? Yeah, but it's only the first 4 simanim, I'm saying.
It's in that?
Yeah, the first 4 simanim are, they printed both, the old and the new, so you can compare for scholarly.
In there?
I mean, it's not in here because this is the volume 2, but in the volume 1, yeah, you have the first 4 simanim with a new version. But in the Siddur, the Alter Rebbe does alter his psak from the Shulchan Aruch in some ways. And this is one of the ways. So, yeah, there's no question he wanted it to be learned. The Siddur, in fact, was...
He was counting on people.
No, on the contrary, the Siddur was more, it was like for the Amcha. It's not a question of authority. Everybody uses a Siddur. They use a Shulchan Aruch, you got to come to a shir. Everybody has a Siddur, you know what I'm saying? On the contrary, it becomes even better now. So, Piskei HaSiddur. All right, here you go. I actually did translate this last time with Len Boyer, so Blina, I'll send it out for next week's shir, so you'll have it. Here we go. Shaloi lismach al heter an nahug, not to rely on the accepted heter. Nahug means it's a customary heter. If a fly or something, some other junk fell into a cup or a bowl, to take it out with a spoon, you might take out some liquid with it. It might be a chiyuv chatas or nisaskila. Basically, the Alter Rebbe questions the premise of the Taz's heter. The premise of the Taz's heter is that when you take out good and bad, it's not considered boyer. But that's a chiddush, because the fact is you are fixing the good that you left behind. You did take good together with the bad, but the fact is you left a fixed product. So maybe it is still considered selecting. You took good out, but the fact is your intention was to take out the bad. The fact that you took out good was just to make it mutter, right? But your intention was to select, and you selected. So it's not so simple that it's not considered boyer. Yes? You could do that, but Alter Rebbe is another way. There is another way. The takana is to pour out from the cup so that the psoilas goes out. Pour it out. You shouldn't blow on it with your mouth until it goes out, because boyer with your mouth is also boyer. No, you shouldn't do that. You could blow it to bring it to the edge of the cup. And then you tilt it and pour it until the pselis falls out.
You had the fly in the cup of water. You can overflow the cup until the fly comes out. Adding more water until like it's overflowed and then flush out. You're allowed to?
Let's listen to the Alter Rebbe's reasoning, and then you can decide. Listen to his reasoning. Because the reason that the pselis is falling out is because you're holding the cup with the mashke in it, and turning it with your hand. So it's called boyer oichel mitach pselis. And it's permissible in order to drink it immediately. By the way, that's another chiddush. In other words, according to the Taz, you're not doing boyer, so you don't have to do it right before. If it fell into the soup on Friday night after the meal, and you want to put the soup back in the fridge, you could do it now, even though you're not eating from it at all, because it's not boyer. Selecting good and bad is not called boyer. Alter Rebbe is saying, no, I'm going to tell you a way that is considered boyer, but it's considered boyer oichel mitach pselis. And that is when you tilt it out, because you're doing it with the, you're using the oichel to be boyer the pselis. That's called boyer oichel mitach pselis. Because you're using the actual good in order to take out the bad, that's called boyer oichel mitach pselis. This is practical.
Yeah, no. In the pot.
Yeah.
You have to keep the whole pot because it has stuff in it. You're allowed to take it, not take it. You put it in a bowl. And then fill it in the bowl. Because you don't have to do it with the pot itself. So it's not very good with a spoon. It's like actually with a matzeket for a lot. So like you're serving.
I don't see why not. Because there your intention at that time is not to take out, is not to be boyer the fly from the soup. You want to serve the soup to eat. And you're taking the fly out also, and then you're going to spill it out together with the oichel, I think. In other words, if your intention is to be boyer, then it's a shaila. Because saf kal saf, that's your intention. So what's the difference if it's a small spoon or a big spoon? That doesn't make a difference. The point is, if you want to serve the soup, So then it's not considered boyer per se until you actually spill it out. So then b'chura would seem that you could do it. Okay. V'chein im nafal lekar sheish bo roitav. Same thing if it fell into a bowl that has liquid. Same thing if there's fat floating on top of the soup, you shouldn't spill it. You shouldn't throw it out with a spoon, right? The Taz's way. Take some of the fat with some of the soup. No, because that's pselis me'echal nischayev. Okay, so the point is, I want to repeat this line. Since the pselis is falling out through the fact that you're holding the cup with the mashka and you're turning it, that is called boyer oichel mitech pselis. Okay.
So you're holding the can with the corn and spilling the sauce and have left with the food. The same way you're holding the tea, the cup, the spilling it, and it's left.
Exactly. So here's the thing. There's two ways of understanding this Alter Rebbe. Listen carefully. There's a Ktsos HaShulchan's way, and there is also another way. I don't remember who learns this other way, but Rav Farkash does, and Rav Deitch, when I went by him, said it also. I think the Shmir Shabbos Kol Chasei also understands it this way. The second way. So the Shulchan says that the pshat is that what stays in your hand is considered the oichel. It is considered the davar hanivra, What stays in your hand, that is what is being selected. What pours out is what's being rejected, and what stays in your hand is what's being selected. That's the chiddush that says the Shulchan. That's his way of understanding it. And nafka mina is, by the way, according to him, you wouldn't be allowed to spill out what you don't want. What you want. You wouldn't be allowed. If you want to drink that corn juice, some people like it apparently. Some people like pickle juice. It's all sorts. If you want to drink that corn juice, you would not be allowed to spill it to another cup, according to the Ktsos HaShulchan's way.
No, there would be.
What do you mean?
No, I want.
If you want to drink the corn juice, so what you're keeping in your hand is what is the davar haniver, and what you're pouring out is the davar that's what you're keeping in your hand is what you're selecting. So you're selecting the bad, which is the corn. You don't want to eat the corn, right? When there's too many oichlim, that's another shayla. I'm talking about if you want to drink we discussed that yesterday. If you want to drink the corn juice, you don't want to eat the corn. So according to the Ktsos HaShulchan, you would not be allowed to pour out that juice because you're selecting the corn and taking out the corn which you don't want.
Could you drink straight from the can?
You could drink straight from it, yes, absolutely. You're selecting the corn.
So what's the difference then? If you drink,
talking about if you want to drink the liquid and you pour it out, leaving the corn in your hands, and now you're going to put the corn down, you're going to pick up the liquid. What bracha are you going to say? Shakal? Everybody agrees to that?
No, I'll say no, I do.
Why not?
Oh, then you don't want to eat the corn.
You don't eat the corn, you want to drink the liquid.
Oh. No, you just...
It's not
that's what we're discussing.
It's water to maintain the corn.
Okay. If it's just water, then it's for sure shakal. If they cooked it in it, it's a machlokes. If they cooked it in it, it's a machlokes. But anyway, we say shakal anyway. Lamaisa, according to Ktsos HaShulchan, you're not allowed to do that. Because what is left in your hand is what you've selected. So you selected the bad, i.e. the corn, because you don't want the corn, from the good, i.e. the liquid, which is what you want. That's all Ktsos HaShulchan's way. The way that other poskim understand it, I don't know if I should call them poskim. I guess the Shemir Shabbos is the poskim. So the way other poskim understand it is that what the Alter Rebbe means is that when you use the oichel to remove the psoilus, that's called boyer oichel mipsoilus. It's not that what stays in your hand is what you're selecting. It's because you're doing the breira by holding the oichel. That's considered boyer oichel.
So if you're doing without holding it,
What?
you take the can, you make a hole in the middle, nothing coming out. You're throwing it on top of the cup, and that's it.
Oh, that's mamish. That's mamish boyer bekli. That's mamish boyer bekli. That's mamish boyer bekli. Which I wanted to discuss anyway about this. Anyway.
According to the second shot, so his question with overflowing the cup to have the butt come out,
Not so partial.
why wouldn't it be the same exact situation?
Because
Let
there,
the food to the borer.
Because left you're holding the cup with a good.
but there it's also coming out. The water's also coming out.
Pause a second.
There's good coming out also, but the same when you're spilling it, and there's good coming out with the fly. It's not good the fly going to come by himself, you got liquid. So
When you're doing it, the second way
is
is that because you're using the food to be mavar the psilus, so that's called bar oichel. So when you're just turning on the tap higher and it's all coming out, I don't know if that's called using the oichel. I don't know.
It's the cough of the water that's pushing it out.
Yeah, but that's not even your oichel. You're not even eating it. That's just extra water that you're using water to be mavar, to be boyer.
What would be the case of a same situation, just a cup with a fly inside the water? What would this, according to the second shot, how would they allow it to get it out?
Same thing.
By what, pouring it out?
Yeah.
Just pouring it out.
Hmm.
So you're taking the fly out by the water coming out.
Yeah.
So what would be the difference if you overflow a cup?
If you overflow the cup, you're not using the water that's staying in your cup to be mavar, to do the boyer. You're using other water. That's not your oichel. That's just using water to do breyer. The fact that water is edible doesn't mean that it's oichel. You understand? It has to be that's your oichel. Just like you can't use water to be boyer. Now we're talking about soaking. It's oichel. It's not oichel. The water is what you're using to be boyer. Not the water that is overflowing. That's gone. It's not simple. It's not simple. I'm not saying it's also. It's not simple.
What about when you spill the liquid with a fly, there's some liquid went out?
Yes.
You're not drinking it now.
Well, that's actually
If it was in the cup, you would.
That's actually an interesting thing. The Ktsis HaShulchan, by the way, says this. The Ktsis HaShulchan says that the Alter Rebbe is using two svaras, like a tziruf of two svaras. He's using the idea that what's left in your hand is the davar hanisbar. That's his chiddush number one. Second of all, when you pour out the fly, obviously some of the soup is going to come too. So it's like the taz's svar plus another kula. It's like two kulas together. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
So,
I'm just saying.
okay, yeah. So in most cases, there's oxygen and solid coming out.
That's the way the Shulchan learns. It's not necessarily the pshat. It could be the pshat is.
I say, regardless how you do it, there's oxygen and solid coming out.
Yes. So
why would when you overflow it, you're concerned about the oxygen that's coming out?
well, the Alter Rebbe in the Siddur is not happy to be matir boyer based on the fact that it's oichel and psel is both coming out. Because then you could just use the spoon, like the Taz says. That svara for sure on its own is not enough, according to the Alter Rebbe. That's the whole point of this chumrah. You see what I'm saying? You need another svara also.
But you're saying the same thing. The Alter Rebbe said, like, take the cup, turn over, let the fly out with the liquid, and it's fine. I'm holding the cup, and I'm adding water to it, so it's going to be overflowed. It's no good.
I'm not saying it's no good. I'm saying it's not clear that it's good. Because you're not using what you're eating to be mavar the psalis. You're using extra water that's not part of oichel or psalis. You're just using water to do brayer.
Right. Also, what's the point of adding more water if you just tilt the cup?
That's another point.
But there's no, we were trying beforehand to get out of that.
That's another question. But here's the thing, my friends. This is something we didn't discuss until now, but it has to be discussed, is that I'm not sure you're allowed to use the can at all, regardless of what's, of any other heter, of what's left in your hand, is the thing that's considered selected, or because you're doing it through the food. But regardless of all that, the problem is that when you use a can like that, and you're using the jar, the cover of the can to help you, that could be considered using a keli to help you do boyer. So now we know when you do boyer with a spoon, a fork, that's not considered using a keli, because that's just like an extension of your hand. You don't want to get your hands dirty, so use a fork, use a spoon. But here, this method is actually making it a much more effective way of doing the brayer. If you would use your fingers, besides the fact that they would get dirty, they wouldn't block it as effectively as the can. The can just has a little slit around. It's kind of perfect. So it seems to me that it's a problem of boyer bekli.
Use the hand. But no problem, no question.
You can use your hands, yes,
No
to
question.
pour it out, yes. Correct.
Pour it out, you need to.
I'm saying if you
want. You wouldn't be taking.
no, to pour it out, Al Terba says if you tip it out, Al Terba said in the siddur, you can tip out what you don't want.
And then the corn, how would that work? You wouldn't be able to do it with the corn can.
Why not?
How would you be able to do that?
Why not? Tip out the water, hold it in with your hands instead of with the lid.
Oh, just
The
go
jar.
like this.
Yeah, instead of the lid. So it would seem, yes.
But it won't be a complete boiler because it will remain some liquid in the item. Unless you be boiled if you dry it out, right?
Whoa. Who said boyer means you have to take all the pseudos out? Boyer doesn't mean you have to take all the stuff you don't want out. If you have a mixture of good and bad, or some stuff you want, some stuff you don't want, you can't take out 90% of the bad and say, oh, I didn't do boyer. I left some of it in there. Doesn't work that way.
All right. So it doesn't matter if still some liquid inside.
It's not going to help. It's not going to help. Now, we have cases that are like that, but they're different than that. I'll give you an example. We have a case like we're going to see later at the end of the simon. If you have the cream that is on top of the milk before the homogenized and pasteurized the milk, so you have the bottom, and then you have the cream on the top. So the Magen Avraham says you can take off the cream on top as long as you leave a layer on the bottom. So, but that's not because you're leaving some, so it's not considered boyer. That's because the top is not mixed. It's separate. Until you get to the layer that's touching it, it's considered separate. You see what I'm saying? It's not considered mixed. Here, the liquid is in the whole jar. It's mixed. And you're taking out 90% of it, that's boyer. There, it's simply that the part of it that's not touching the milk itself is not mixed. See what I'm saying? That's what it is.
And now I think what I saw, we're saying no.
Yep.
That using your hand is a problem.
Why?
Using your hand to be boyer and the bar is a problem.
Why?
I don't know. I remember seeing it.
More than the jar?
No, I don't remember. But the jar I also remember something. But the hand, I remember someone asked her, Yosef when he was here about that. It was about pouring, I forgot exactly what it was, pouring something through your hand and what was it, stay? Your hand? That's all. I'll find out.
Now that you say it, No, it just makes me think. In other words, according to the Hilchos Shulchan, that the pshat is what stays in your hand is what you're selecting. So what's the difference if you use your hand or not? It's staying there, that's what you're selecting. But according to the other way of understanding the pshat, it's that when you select using the good to help you, that's when it's called boyer oichel. So when you tip it out, you're only using the oichel to select. But here, you're actually using your hand to select. The hand is what is doing it, not the oichel. And so when you're just tipping it out, your whole action is with the oichel. Here, you're doing separate action with your hand. So I'm not so sure. This matter needs further inspection, whatever the word is, investigation. Sorry? Yes, I hear you. Yossi sent me a quote. Let's have it. Yossi sent me a quote? I don't have it. No. Oh, on the group, on the WhatsApp group? I don't have it on the YouTube. Yossi sent me a photo that says, this does not involve the prohibition against selection since the unintended incidentals are preferring the can. It is permissible to open a can or other container if before while opening it one perforates or tears it at the side or in such a way that will no longer be fit to be used as a container. It's not a prohibition against selection because the unintended incidentals are preferring the can. One should not pour liquid out of the open can, which should remove the food, leaving the liquid inside. All right, there you have it. Shmir Shabbos. He says you should not pour out the liquid. You should rather take out the solid, leaving the liquid behind.
Easy, man. That's for sure allowed.
That's for sure allowed. But I'm saying, but he specifically says not to pour out the liquid. All right.
Oh, I have a couple questions here.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the first question is, what is the difference between like drinking from the can and then pouring it out into a bowl? Like I asked before, you said it was mutter to drink the corn juice out of the can.
Why not? You're mamish taking the good and you're drinking it. What's better than that? You're not even selecting. You're just drinking.
Oh, I see. But when you're pouring it out, even though you want it, you're doing borer, even though you're pouring the good from the bad.
Oh, pouring the juice out. Okay, pouring the juice out, if you want the juice, is only usher according to the Hilchos Shulchan. Again, the Hilchos Shulchan says that what's left in your hand is considered what you're selecting. And when you pour out is considered what you're rejecting. So, in other words, that's what you are leaving behind. So it's like you're taking the bad out of the good by doing that. All right. So according to him, that's awesome. Whereas, according to the other way of understanding the Alter Rebbe, so what you're pouring out is what you're selecting. Except that when you do it through the oichel, it's considered boyer oichel anyway. So according to their way of understanding, you would be allowed to pour out the juice if that's what you want to eat. So I'm just saying it's not so simple that it's forbidden.
Okay.
Even though I said that it is forbidden according to him, but it's not universally understood that way.
Okay. Second question is like if I open a can of tuna fish, so I've opened the can, and then suppose I press down on the top, and then the liquid comes up, and then I pour out the liquid. Is that considered the borer in that case?
Absolutely. If you open a can of tuna fish, or whoever opened it, however it was, or whatever, and you press down on it, the liquid comes up, and then you pour it out. So that is boyer. I mean, it's boyer in two stages, but it is boyer. Is it schita?
I mean, let's say there's obviously liquid in the tuna,
There is ein schita ba'oichlin. If you squeeze out what's absorbed in food and you throw it out, that's not a forbidden schita.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that.
Just to use it as this.
To use it is mefarik, is a very serious issue, mefarik. But when you throw it out, there is no issue.
Oh, so squeezing the tuna fish.
As far as that's concerned.
No, it drinks.
As far as that's concerned. As far as boyer is another shot.
Meaning, what if you took the tuna out with a fork? And now you press down.
What's left?
With the tuna out of the can. Now
Yeah.
it's on a plate.
Yeah.
You squeezed it to get all the stuff out. To make it not juicy, rather dry.
Oh.
So that would be allowed, you're saying. Squeezing? No, there's no squeezing in food.
There's no squeezing in food. You're asking why is it not boyer? That's what you're asking.
No.
There's no schita, there's not.
Oh.
You're asking why is it not boyer?
Oh. Well.
I think it's that you're what you have is what you want. So that's it's boyer ochel. It is boyer, but it's boyer ochel. It's boyer ochel. It's boyer ochel. You're taking the good. You're keeping the good.
Oh, okay.
Keeping the good, and it's also not with a keli. To use the jar is using a keli.
To use the cap?
To use the cap is using a keli.
Any type of keli is a keli? Any keli that's used to hold the spoon? What if I take anything that's not miyut to usually squeezing anything random, my hand or
Your hand is mutter.
Right.
Using a keli becomes a shaila. Not because of
Like
mafarik. Not because of mafarik. Because like I said, there is no mafarik. But because of boyer. Because of boyer. You can't be boyer with a keli.
Remember that the clay is not used to doing this? Let's say I use a coaster. I take the can of tuna, I put the tuna on a plate, it's round. I take a coaster or something else round, or a can, another can.
I don't have a heter for it. What do I mean to say? The fact is that boyer with a keli, even if it's not the special keli that's made to use it, as long as it makes it a more effective way of brayer, it's aser. If it's the same as your hand, except that it keeps your hands clean, then you can do it. That's like the fork and knife idea.
So if you just don't do it so hard. If I can squeeze with my hand and I can squeeze with a can, or would I be able to even use the top of the can?
Why? Why are you using the top of a can? Why?
Just
if it's because it makes it, it does a better job, then it's a problem. If it's just to make your hand not get dirty, then l'chura it's mutter. Okay. All right. Here goes the Alter Rebbe. Yud Aleph. Oichel upstoiles ha'mu'uravim. Also lidnim b'mayim k'dei shipel ha'psoiles l'mato. K'goin sh'ha'psoiles hu offer, or k'dei shiyotzuf l'mayla k'goin shu teven. Yud Aleph and Alter Rebbe. V'chein ha'kashinim en shonosim b'mayim k'dei l'hotzav ha'psoiles shalem l'mayla. L'shofen osim b'yad l'hotzav ha'psoiles. B'tnei shu k'boyer. All right, let's have some English. When food and undesirable matter are mixed together, it is forbidden to place them in water so that the undesirable matter will fall to the bottom. For example, when the undesirable matter is earth, or so that the undesirable matter will float to the top, for example, if it is straw. Similarly, beans should not be soaked in water so that their wastes should float upwards, nor should they be rubbed by hand to remove the wastes, because this is considered like separating. One may, however, place the beans in a sieve, even though the waste falls through the holes of the sieve and thus become separated as a natural consequence. Sorry? A sieve is a sifter with holes.
So I don't know what you do in the US, but in the UK there are various things that we wash by soaking them in water. So, for example, strawberries, we usually put them in water with a little bit of detergent or something and then agitate it to remove any bugs. Are we saying that's not something we can do?
I mean, there's a few problems with that on Shabbos. There's a few problems with that on Shabbos. First of all, you have the borer question, like we're saying right here. And second of all, you have the issue of killing those bugs.
Well, you're not actually expecting there to be bugs, but if they are there, then they will be. I don't know if they'll be killed, but they'll certainly be separated.
Right. So that's not an unintended consequence. That is your intention. Whether it's there or not is a question. You're right. But when you do it, if you do it, that's your intention.
Are you saying you can't wash anything for bugs on Shabbos?
So here's the thing. Here's the thing. This is a question not just about bugs, but about washing fruits and vegetables in general. What is the heter to use water to wash fruits or vegetables on Shabbos, when the halacha clearly states that using water is a forbidden form of borer? I mean, we just learned it. When food and undesirable matter, you have your apples, you have your grapes, your blueberries, strawberries, carrots, cucumbers, you name it. Why are you washing it? Presumably because there's something undesirable that is on it, maybe. And you're washing it to get off that undesirable thing. Why is that not forbidden as borer? So why is this not derech achila? What's the difference? No, we just said here in Yud Aleph, if there's oichel and psolis mixed together, you can't put it in water to separate it. What's the difference if you put it in water or if you put it under the faucet and there's water in the faucet? What's the difference? Faucet, bowl. Why?
Because this is in a bowl.
So?
The other one just flashes off.
Explain to me the difference. I'm ready to hear. The truth is that maybe it is different. No. The truth is maybe it is different, but I want to hear why.
He makes it sound like it's different because with one of them, you're trying to actually separate the two out into. So when you put it into the water, all of the bad stuff will all rise to the top. And so
it's going to go down the drain. What do you care whether it's down the drain or on the top? As long as it's not on your apple.
But because you have left the good in your hands.
Ah, okay, that's one answer. But that only works according to Hilchos Shulchan. The Hilchos Shulchan says that what's left in your hands is the davar hanisbar. That's the thing that you're selecting. So according to him, you can use water to select as long as you're not putting in a bowl, but you're putting it under a faucet, because what's left in your hand is what you're selecting. So you're selecting the apple from the dirt, whatever dirt goes down the drain. That's not a problem because you're selecting the apple, selecting the grapes, whatever it is. That is the Hilchos Shulchan's chiddush regarding the soup and the fly, and he applies it here too. That is correct. There is another answer that I saw, and this would maybe even permit it in a bowl, but not for bugs. I don't have a way out for bugs according to this answer.
Is it considered solid?
So here's the thing. Here's the svara. Here's the svara, which is brought down. Embedded. What do you mean by embedded?
Rashi says when you take out dust, so it's like washing the garment because it was like, so to speak, in the garment.
And therefore what?
The dust on your apple is like the clothing.
So therefore there's no bar?
Yes, it's this one item.
It's an interesting svar. It's an interesting svar. I'll file it somewhere. So here, the svar that he brings, the Dir Shulchan Aruch, quotes Reb Shlomo Zalman, and the Chazon Ish, and the Shevet HaLevi, that if what you're removing is not visible to the human eye, then it's not considered significant. What are you washing off an apple? I mean, in today's supermarkets, you don't get dirt on apples. You're washing the apple because who knows who touched it, who knows what the chemicals they used. Truth is, probably the chemicals are not coming off in water. But I'm saying, I don't know. I'm not saying I don't know, but I'm just saying whatever you're trying to wash is not visible to the human eye, and therefore maybe it's not considered actual psilus.
So you have a piece of mud on the license. This one you cannot.
So according to that answer, that would not apply to actual anything visible. Would not help you for anything visible. For that matter, it wouldn't help you for bugs either. This whole svar would not help you for bugs, because invisible bugs are not an issue for eating. You can enjoy them. You can't enjoy them because you can't see them. No, I'm talking about if it's actually invisible, halachically. If it's halachically invisible because you can't see it because it's too small to see, so then it's not aser. And if it is visible, then we can't say this svar. I understand. If it's halachically invisible, then it's not going to be an issue with either eating or selecting. If it's halachically visible for whatever reason, so then you can't say that it's not there for the purpose of boyer because it is there. You understand? And that's your intention to remove it. So I don't have this svar is not going to help you for bugs. And therefore, the only svar that I can think that would help is the Ksesa Shulchan svar, that it's what's left in your hand is considered what you're taking, and that therefore you would only be allowed to actually put it under running water and not to actually soak it. I don't know what they do what do they do? What do the caterers do? I can't imagine that they're soaking leaf by leaf.
No, the way they used to do it when I worked at Hashgacha in Australia is they'd fill up a sink and they'd separate all the leaves, they'd push it all down and agitate it around and leave it like that, and either stuff would float out or it wouldn't.
Right. No, that's all good. But what about on Shabbos?
Oh, I never witnessed that on Shabbos.
So that's what I'm wondering. Do they wash all lettuce before Shabbos? Is that what I don't know. Maybe they do.
I would assume.
Maybe.
I would assume that they do, but in the case of washing, why is washing down a sink now? Because you're taking what you want.
According to the Ksesa Shulchan, what you're holding is consider what you're taking, correct? So what falls out, what goes down is like
going down. It's water. You're using water to be water. You're not. Was it using that
in a kli, you're saying?
Yeah.
Why is water not like a kli?
Use that in a cup of water. Water, you want to pour water inside in order for that to fall out. You're using water to be in the water.
If you spun it, or let it out be a washing so it will dry, that's separated, isn't it? What we're talking about is plastic devices.
Yeah. I don't know if that's mutter on Shabbos.
Why would it?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Sounds like it's even worse, no? With the clear view of what you're.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's according to Shmir's Shabbos Kilchasa, you're not allowed to do it unless it's immediately before eating it.
That's what he brings here, yeah.
Is either you wash it in water, you wipe it with a dry cloth, or you take off the dirty peel.
Gotta look up that Shemir Shabbos 1 second.
Does Shlomo Zalman have a Sefer Halacha himself?
Yeah, he wrote a few Svarim.
Shabbos?
No. He wrote Chuvas. So he has Chuvas is called Mincha Shleima, 3 Chalakim. Then he wrote a Sefer on electricity.
What?
Electricity. Chashmal or Alach, I think. And I don't know if he wrote anything else. I think the rest is what the Talmidim wrote down from what he said. So, Perek Gimel, Mem Ches. Okay, so here's what Rav Shlomo Zalman says in the Shemir Shabbos. Rav Shlomo Zalman didn't write the Shemir Shabbos. It's written by his Talmud, but he went over it, and it's generally considered his work, although he does quote other people too. Anyway, he says, basically, if the psoiles is mixed into the peiros, then you can't use water to clean it. That was if you have some dirt, you have grapes, and you have dirt mixed in with the grapes. That's a problem. But if the psoiles is dafuk, is stuck to it, so then he says it's mutter. He doesn't consider that to be boyer. He considers that to be washing. That's washing. That's not boyer. Let me just see if he explains.
It's two different entities.
Base. Give me a second, please. Let me see what he explains here. On base. Each one. It's interesting. He doesn't really explain. He just proves it from different sources. But the only svara that he gives is that maybe washing something from the dirt that's on it is not called boyer, but rather cleaning. So I'm thinking that it actually has to do with what you're saying. That the dirt that's stuck to it is not considered like psoilas. It's considered part of it. It's considered like the dirty part of it, and therefore it's not considered like a separate entity of psoilas.
I'm thinking opposite. It isn't separate. Because it's a separate entity, it's like two different things.
No. Then the fact that it's not stuck to it wouldn't help. He says if it's not stuck to it, if it's just dirt mixed in, then you can't use water. But if it's stuck to it, then you can. That's what he's saying. As long as it's samuch la'achil, as long as it's close to eating.
Because it's washing,
Exactly.
unless you're separating.
But because this is not called separating, I think because he considers it like one entity until it's separated, so therefore he considers it like an act of washing, not an act of birth.
So there wouldn't be a problem with soaking strawberries beforehand, as long as because you can't see anything, you're not.
Exactly.
You're just washing the strawberries.
Exactly. According to this, it wouldn't be a problem, but you have to do it right before eating.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That means
I'm not sure about killing those bugs. That's my shot.
you don't know that there are any there.
I'm saying, but if they're in there, your entire intention is to remove them. That is your intention. So the whole thing of maybe they're there, maybe they're not, that's a svara if it's not your intention. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's definitely part of your intention. I mean, the firm Jew wants to remove those bugs.
So this on the other class on green leaves, you're allowed to cut the piece.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it a cool element that you're allowed to cut a piece of bad or good?
Now that you had to ask that, it's actually not so clear because Alter Rebbe says taking out with the spoon is not mutter because taking some of the good with the bad is still boyer. So maybe by the lettuce too. Maybe by the lettuce too.
But can you put the whole leaves aside? This is you see leaves have some parts. You put the whole leaves aside. Not just obviously going to clear the need.
Well, that for sure you can do. That's no problem. That for sure you can do. Okay.
You don't know who was like that? Taking,
That's the way of eating, right?
I eat it once a year, basically.
Should be a way of eating, right? Taking, just peeling off all the seeds from the strawberry.
Peeling off the seeds?
Taking
What?
off the good and the bad of the strawberries.
Who takes the seeds off the strawberries? What's left after that? You take the seeds off?
Yes, I just cut everything.
You don't
all the
peel it?
seeds, because inside the seeds are the worms. So I take everything out. And that's
You just eat the middle?
way I eat it, and I eat it like that.
You just eat the middle? Wow. Okay. I give you credit?
Does that work?
I don't think so, because you're taking.
The way I eat it.
Yeah, but it's one food. It's one food. We said before, there's no bird with one
I don't
food.
want to take chances.
What would be the problem?
It's enough for me to see
I
one.
promise I watched until 9:30 yesterday, watching the entire,
Actually, strawberry.
I think we spoke about
Yeah,
that.
but yeah,
What would be the
normally
problem with fish then?
other part, and then you put
No, the bone is not food if it's not edible.
Seed by seed.
If it's not edible, it's not edible.
It's one of them.
Okay, that's maybe a reason to be makel. That's one of the Mishnah Brewers. That's one of his reasons to be makel.
Chicken bones, taking out the bones from the chicken piece.
Yeah, same thing.
Why? We can eat chicken bones.
Maybe yeah, maybe no. Saying most of the reasons that to be makel would apply to chicken bones too. Most of them, except that it's possible to eat without doing that, so it's better not to rely on those reasons. You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Is peeling with a peeler problematic?
Why not?
With a peeler?
You can peel one, not with a peeler.
That's the machlokes.
So I've always peeled with a knife, but I'm wondering whether peeling with a peeler is okay.
I believe Shlomo Zalman says it's Aser, but Reb Moshe Feinstein is quoted as saying that it's Mutter.
Do you peel on Shabbos?
To use a peel on Shabbos. Again, this is if you can only do right before eating, right? In general, peeling you can only do right before eating. Whether it's actually 1 second, separate question. If it's an inedible peel, you can. If it's inedible peel, definitely you can only do right before eating, because then it's derech achila. Whereas if you do it earlier, that's not derech achila, that's a regular boyer. But if it's an edible peel, that's machlokes. If it's considered boyer or not, some say it's an edible peel, so there's no boyer. It's the same oil. Some say that once you peel it, it's gonna become junk, and therefore it is boyer. But you could do right before derech achila. As far as using a peeler, so some say it's like a keli am yuchad lekach, and it's aser regardless, even if you do it right before. But Reb Moshe Feinstein is quoted as saying that a peeler is just a fancy knife. It's just two knives put close to each other. He holds, apparently he holds. It's not recorded in the Igros Moshe, but his Talmidim said that he held that a peeler is just like two knives held together. It's not like a real separate kind of keli. Kind of a swap.
I recently found out that you can use an egg mandolin on Shabbos.
Yeah.
So that's why I was asking.
Yeah. An egg cutter with those wires that you can use to slice an egg, because that's just it's like many knives. Yeah, why not? It's like many knives close to each other. There's no reason why not.
You're not shaping the knives?
No reason why not.
You're not shaping the egg?
You're allowed to shape an egg. Why not? Shape it. What's wrong? You can't make artwork, but you can cut eggs. You can cut eggs. It's no problem. Okay. We continue and we say we're going to learn tests in the Mechaber. I finished it off in the Alter Rebbe, and now we're going back to the Mechaber tests. Mishameres, afilu tluyu me'erev Shabbos, also litin b'shmor. A mishameres is a filter, a strainer, even if it's already hanging from before Shabbos. So there's no issue with putting it up in the first place, which maybe could be asiyas oil. If you remember back in Shin Tes Vav many moons ago, we learned that setting up a meshameres could be considered also as an asiyas oil. It's the same, except that one is for liquids, one is for solids. Nappas for solids, meshameres for liquids. Also, litin bashmarim, you cannot put dregs into it, meaning to say you cannot put wine that has dregs in it to sift out those dregs, to strain out those dregs. That is mamish and iser d'oraisa. However, if you put the dregs in from Erev Shabbos, the truth is, when he says Aslitin Bashmarim, he doesn't say wine. He just says Shmar. But it's talking about Shmarim that have still some wine mixed into them, obviously. So that when you put them in, the liquid drips out. That's a problem. But if you put Shmarim in there from Erev Shabbos, now listen carefully, big chiddush. You have Shmarim. You have wine dregs in your strainer. Put them there from before Shabbos. So there's no problem with sifting them per se, with straining them per se. Now they're sitting there. You're allowed to pour water on them, even though that water is going to pass through the shmarim, grab some of the flavor of the shmarim, and come out the other side. Because since when you put in the water, it was without any sodas, and when it's coming out the other side is that an ipsadis, that's not considered an active boyer. No, you want the flavor of the shmor. The shmorim still have some wine in them, right? Have some wine in them. So when you put the water through the...
And actually going to drink the water.
Of course, you're going to have wine-flavored water, a machaya. People do it on Pesach all the time. Yeah? Wine-flavored water. So that's what you want to do. That's no problem. Because you're not separating, you're simply adding a wine flavor. Understand? When it went in, it had nothing bad. When it comes out, it has nothing bad. On the way, it picked up some good addition. And based on this, L'chura, I don't want to give this psak because I don't want to give this psak.
This only if the Shmai was the before Shabbos.
Yeah, because otherwise, if it's there, if you put it there on Shabbos, maybe it's going to make it drip on Shabbos. It's not because you put it there from before Shabbos per se. It's because if you put shmorim on Shabbos in general, it could drip out, so it's a problem. But based on this halacha, l'chura, the halacha should be that if you want to make a coffee on Shabbos by pouring hot water, I'm saying, let's say there's no bishul issues. Let's say because it's a kli shlishi, or if you hold ein bishul achar afia, whatever opinion you're relying on as far as bishul is concerned. Let's say kli shlishi, whatever. You want to pour hot water over coffee grinds that are in a strainer. And the water is going to pass through those grinds, get the flavor of coffee, and come out the bottom as coffee. Should be mutter. Same thing here. Same exact thing. You're passing water through the strainer and it picks up wine flavor on the way out. But because it went in as water and it comes out as water, flavored water, it's not considered boyer. So the same thing, pour in hot water, comes out as hot water flavored with coffee, but you didn't take anything out of it, you just added something to it. Ain't tzvi boichlin. Ain't tzvi boichlin, according to the majority of the poskim, Alter Rebbe among them. More machmir, but most poskim say ain't tzvi boichlin. If you're actually eating it, you know what I'm saying. You can't color water for decorative purposes. You know what I'm saying. But if you're actually eating it, the color of the food that you eat is not significant compared to the actual eating of the food. So that's what it is.
I'm not sure that after eating for a time, this is already to not do it again. This coffee. It's not the same stuff. I'm sorry now. So you live there?
So what? Why should it be an issue? You're making something not usable. That's not a malacha. If there's no boyer, then the fact that you're going to throw out the coffee grinds is no issue. So,
what about when you use a coffee press? I mean, is that the same thing?
That's not so simple.
A French press.
That's not so simple. When you use the French press,
I mean, I've been doing it. Yeah.
Now you want me to find you out there because you've been doing it. I don't know about that.
That's right.
I don't know. I did actually read about it. What's a French press? A French press is basically you have like a container with in the container you have the water and the tea leaves or the coffee grinds all mixed in, and then you have a metal like a strainer kind of thing, a metal piece with little holes in it, and it goes down a metal shaft that holds it in place. and you push it down, and it pushes down all the pieces so that on the bottom you'll have all the grinds or all the tea leaves, and on the top you'll have clear coffee or tea. You know what I'm saying? Picture it? So, yeah. I mean, on the face of it, it would seem like it should be also, because you're using the keli to separate. But let's hear your svar, Daniel. Go ahead. Give me some reason to be lenient.
The separation is already there.
Excuse me, what do you mean?
Well,
until you push it down, it hasn't been done yet.
But pushing it down doesn't do anything.
Why not?
Because
before it settles before, is that what you mean?
Once you've got, as soon as the strainer is in place, it's ready to separate. It's not the pushing down that separates it, it's the pouring out that separates it.
Oh, I see.
You know, I could still drink the coffee without pushing it down. That's
well, that's
I could just, but it's
that's a svara. That's a svara. We're going to get to that later. That's something that is drinkable as is. Maybe it's not boyer when you separate out the stuff that is not a big deal either way.
He's using a strainer to separate it inside this.
Inside, yeah. But one second, Yossi. I'm sorry.
I'm allowed to use a strainer.
That's what we're discussing. I don't know. Just to understand what you're saying, Yossi. If you wouldn't press it down, it would still separate it when you pour it out. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So what's the point of why do people press it down then?
I've not actually understood that. Probably so that it's easier to pour out. But I honestly don't understand. I assume that it's got something to do with letting the coffee grounds more freely move around in the hot water. But I don't know.
I don't see any difference between pushing it down and just leaving it there. But it's just more inconvenient because you have like this big piston sticking out of the glass.
Right, but the thing is, if when you pour it out, it's being strained, whether you pushed it down or not, I don't see a heter, because it's being strained by a strainer as you pour it out. Well, what's the heter for that?
Well, I thought that you just said that if it pours in as water, you can pour it out like water.
No, that's where you don't do any separate action of pouring it out. That's where you pour it through, and it goes straight through, and it comes straight out. But here, you put it in a cup, it sits there, and then you have to do a separate action of pouring it out.
So how's it worse than drinking a tea, putting a tea bag into into a cup? It's the same thing.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Well,
taking out the tea bag? Is that the issue?
There's no straining action.
Oh.
First of all, taking a tea bag out is a question, which we addressed before. Different opinions about how to do it. But certainly there's no keli involved. Whereas if you have the French press, it seems like you're using a keli, using some kind of strainer.
Okay, well, I don't know. Maybe I better stop doing this.
On the face of it, I don't have a heter. On the face of it, I don't have a heter. Maybe in the course of my future research, I'll come up with something for using a French press. Like the coffee strainer.
The buckram. I'll use it. Just don't push it all the way down.
On Shabbos?
Not all the way,
But how do you pour out of it? Well, isn't it being strained as you pour out of it? Unless, I'm thinking something else. I'm just realizing. Unless maybe the svara is that. One second. Daniel, don't throw it out just yet. I'm thinking maybe the svara is that when it settles on the bottom, I don't know if you can push it down or not. But regardless of pushing it down, let's say it settles down on the bottom, you're allowed to pour out the coffee up until you reach close to the grinds. Just like I said before, that the Magen Avraham says, you can cut off the top of the fat until the part of it that's connected. One second. So he says the same thing about wine. You have wine that's mixed in with dregs. So you can pour out the wine that's on the top of the barrel up until you get to the wine that's mixed into the dregs. So that's what I'm thinking here also. You can pour out the coffee up until you reach the level where it's mixed in.
So you're saying I can pour it out?
Strainer is not helping you because it's on the bottom. You're pouring it at the top, and that stuff that stays in the bottom anyway.
It's possible that the reason they push that thing down is because that's how it gets strained. In other words, by going down, it forces the little holes or whatever, so the concrete grinds stay on the bottom.
Right. That I don't know about, because then you're separating it to the bottom within that thing. That I'm not so sure.
Before you get to the bottom, there's some liquid.
Yeah, but you're still separating it up until that point. To actually push it down, I don't know. But if it settles on its own and you simply pour it out, like cafe bots, what they call in Israel, Turkish coffee, where it settles on the bottom. So of course you can drink it directly, but even if you want to pour out the top part until you reach the level where it's mixed, it should be okay because the top is not mixed.
Well, there you're taking a bit out of that.
Okay, well that helped.
In the case of the coffee, wouldn't you be having some what's this stuff called kernels, whatever they're called?
Grinds?
Some of the grind is being strained when you're pouring out.
So you have to stop once you reach that level.
No, not once you reach. I got it on the bottom, but I'm saying it's a liquid. It's all floaty. It's gonna be stuck.
I don't know. I don't know if it is all floaty. The heavier stuff settles at the bottom. I don't know.
Well,
Okay.
this helps actually a lot. I'll just pour it into the glass and let the things go to the bottom, and then I'll just pour it out into a cup.
Yeah,
I'll be
I
okay.
think that's the way.
Okay.
Seems to me to be the way. Okay. Let's learn one more in the Mechaber before we go to the Alter Rebbe. Yud. Yayin by Mayim Shem Tzlulin. Wine or water which is clear. This is something somebody mentioned. Mutter l'sananim mishameres. You're allowed to strain them through a strainer. It's a chiddush. Excuse me. You can filter something that doesn't need filtering.
What's the sake of?
Because you're
For the sake of your OCD.
OCD, exactly. It's OCD. Stop. You want to double, triple, quadruple.
Meaning, no. Well, let's say if it's something that's. Are we allowed to do it with a garment?
I'm going to see about that. How the Ramah adds, even if it has small splinters in it. Because most people would drink it with those things in it. Wouldn't bother them. Yeah.
So we're in a different generation.
You're allowed to have this jar that fills the inside. Without let it stay for a few minutes. And half. There's not enough to
The Mishnah Berurah and the Shemar Shabbos says you can use it if you sometimes drink water that's not filtered. If you're makbid to always only drink filtered water, then you shouldn't use it.
According to this, you'd be allowed to. According to Shema. Maybe the item itself is.
No, because here he's talking about something that doesn't really bother you. If you never drink unfiltered water, then it bothers you. Now, you could say, well, it's not visible, so maybe it's not chashuv, but that's a separate question.
So what if this is like white wine, but it has still has the white wine dregs in it? Could you do that?
One more time, what?
If you have white wine but it has still has like dregs in it.
Yeah.
I mean, could you pour it out? Could you still filter it?
Why? You can filter dregs out of wine. Unless
You can?
You cannot. Most people wouldn't drink their dregs.
But even if it's white wine, or
what does wine have to do with it?
Well, it's clear.
Therefore,
well, I guess you're just straining out maybe little particles here. Then it's not the dregs.
I mean, we're going to see soon about white wine being different in terms of using a cloth. Maybe it's a cleansing liquid as opposed to red wine. But as far as dregs, I don't see a difference.
Okay.
Avo basudar, but using a cloth, mayim asur mishum libun, you can't use water on a cloth that is not designated for straining because you're cleaning it. When it comes to wine or other liquids, it's mutter. The Taz, by the way, says that white wine is like water. White wine, according to Taz, cleanses. If the water or the wine is cloudy, has visible junk in it, you're not allowed to strain it. Ula Rambam, according to the Rambam, Mishameres also for the mayim b'yayin. You can never use a Mishameres, can never use a strainer, even if it's clear, because it's like Uvid and Dechad. I feel it was.
Not going to be allowed to do it. If you pour water on top of the meshamer, then you have like shmarim and the water himself are clear in the beginning.
Yep, correct. That's correct. Even with a sudar, with a cloth, even that you can only use something clear and not something muddy. Okay, but the main halach is not like the Rambam. The yain megita, fresh wine, kozman shutois, as long as it is still bubbling, you can mix the barrel up together with its dregs and put it through a cloth. Here's the thing. When you have fresh wine, the pulp is edible. The pulp, the pieces are edible. When it gets fermented, so the pieces become like the dregs, and nobody eats them. But in the beginning, it's like pulp. It's like orange juice with pulp. Drink the pulp, no problem. So when the wine is still fresh, those pieces are edible. And therefore, you're allowed to strain it because it's not considered like you're straining anything. It's all oichel, all edible. That's the finish. Okay, my friends, let's learn the Alter Rebbe, who explains a little bit more about this sugya. Yubeis, hamashamer shmorim, a person who separates wine dregs. Tana masana mishamer is a person who separates with a filter. Told this it is a tulda of boirer, the good from the bad, but he's using a napa and a kvara. He's using a professional tool. That's a problem. It might be a tulda of merakid, sifting. Not really sure what the difference is. 66. As the Rambam writes, even though the forbidden labors of winnowing, separating, and sifting resemble each other, they are considered as separate categories because all three were independently employed in the construction of the sanctuary. Thus, since these three categories of forbidden labor are similar, there is some question as to which category the derivatives belong. Okay, fine. If you already put the dregs into the sifter before Shabbos, the strainer, before Shabbos, you're allowed to put water on them in order for that water to flow out. like we explained before. Yud Gimel, Yain or Mayim Shem Sulim, wine or water that is clear. You're allowed to strain it through a strainer. In order for them to be more clear. You want them more clear? You're allowed. Even if it has white flecks that are on the wine, or thin slivers have fallen into it, where it's not considered. Perhaps the intent is the residue from the twigs of grapevine that are sometimes found in homemade wine. Okay, so it's not like splinters of wood, pieces of the branches. It's not like bar. However, because most people would drink it as is. Nowadays, when people are careful not to drink liquids that have thin slivers in them, strangely enough, the forbidden labor of separating applies to filtering such slivers out of drinks. Levanta? Right? Nowadays, nobody drinks slivers. So nowadays, it would be bar. Aval. You cannot use a cloth because of the prohibition against whitening. Like we said in Shin days. Soaking a garment is cleaning it. It's not so if it's a strainer, which is made for it. When it comes to the cloth of a strainer that stays there all the time, so first of all, you're not going to squeeze it because it doesn't bother you that it's wet. And second of all, it's not considered cleaning it because that's not something that you clean. It's there to sift. It's there to strain. And therefore, it's not considered an important act of cleaning at all. Even if you hold, normally that soaking a baguette is considered washing. When it comes to red wine or beer or other liquids that are not cleansing, and there's no problem of schita for the reason that we're going to explain there, that we explained there, meaning to say that if you were to squeeze out liquids from a baguette, and you would want to drink those liquids, that would be schita mid'oraisa. That would be mefarik. But if you're going to squeeze it out and you're going to discard the liquids, that's not going to be mefarik mid'oraisa anyway, because you're throwing out what you squeeze out. So here, we're not going to say there's a gzeira, don't make it wet because you may squeeze it. Because even if you would squeeze it, nobody's going to drink the wine that you squeeze out of a strainer cloth. They're not going to drink it. So we're not going to make it clear that you might do it, because even if you do it, it's only going to be darabon. Yes? Again, we're talking about using a strainer, a cloth to strain that's not the designated cloth. And he's saying if it's red wine, you're not cleaning the cloth because red wine doesn't clean. And there's no chashash that you're going to squeeze out the cloth. If it bothers you, the cloth is all red, it's dirty, it's wet. No. Because that's a gzeira against a darabon. Because even if you would squeeze out the wine, as long as you don't plan on using it, it's not going to be a deraisa. So we're not going to make a gzeira that you can't wet it because you might squeeze it. If even squeezing it is not a deraisa. So in such a case, you're allowed to strain it with a cloth, even if they're a little bit muddy. Most people would not drink it without straining it. Nevertheless, since it's possible to drink it if you really want to, it's not a complete brayer. And they permitted it with the shinu, which is the siddur. Even though most people wouldn't drink it, but because it is drinkable if you really were in a pinch, so therefore, as long as you do a shinui, that you're using a cloth instead of an actual regular strainer, that's mutter. Some people forbid that. And it's proper to be strict. like gamri, if they are completely muddy and it's impossible to drink them, they have dregs. Also for the it's forbidden even the siddur according to all opinions. Again, 3 levels here. If it's completely drinkable as is, no problem at all for the average person to drink. So therefore you can strain it, no problem, even with a strainer, actual strainer. If it's not drinkable to most people, but b'shas adchak, when you really need it, you could drink it, you definitely can't use a strainer. Some say you can use a cloth, because that's a shinoi. Others say no. And since it's not drinkable for the average person, even though it's drinkable the adchak, you cannot strain it at all, even with a cloth. If it's not drinkable, even b'shas adchak, then straining would be an issur d'oraisa. So that's what those are the 3 levels. Yan megitoi, fresh wine, calls one true taste as long as it's still bubbling. The process of fermentation, he calls it. You can take a barrel of wine with its dregs and filter it, even running it through the strainer. And they should call manchu toises adayin, as long as it's still bubbling. The wine and the dregs have not separated yet. It's all like one item. There's no burger good from that. Listen, you could drink it as is. People do drink fresh wine with the pieces. Most people do that. So too vinegar, that it's normal to use when it's a little bit thick. You're allowed to strain it. Of harmi, but it's very thick. It's not good without straining. Also, you can't strain it even with the cloth. Almond milk, right? Mashkeshkedim, he calls it. Juice made of almonds that were crushed. You're allowed to crush it, you're allowed to strain it, because people drink it with the pieces of almonds in it, and therefore it's not considered a significant act of straining.
What, on Shabbos you're allowed to crush it and strain it?
No, we didn't say crush it. On the contrary, mashkeshkedim ksushim me'erev Shabbos. Similarly, beverages made from before Shabbos. Otherwise, you're basically making juice. It's like juicing on Shabbos. You can't juice on Shabbos. But it's already juiced, and there's pieces of almonds in it, and most people would drink it with those almond pieces, so you're allowed to strain them out because that's not considered actual separating. All right, my friends.
You make almond milk by adding water to dry ground almonds. So you don't actually get the juice out.
Yeah, I don't think it's a problem. All the best for Hilchos Purim.
Happy Purim, Rabbi.
Thank you. Happy Purim.
Thank you. Happy Purim.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy Purim.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. My pleasure. All the best.